The Vatican, steeped in tradition, found itself at the center of an unexpected media storm. It wasn't a theological debate or a papal decree, it was a dog. Pope Francis, known for his humility, had become known for his fondness for a furry companion. Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, was elected to the papacy in 2013. From the moment he stepped onto the balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square, it was clear this was a different kind of pope. Gone was the elaborate papal attire. Pope Francis opted for a simple white cassock. His demeanor was warm and inviting, his language accessible. So, when rumors began about a dog in the Vatican, it didn't seem far-fetched. The presence of a dog in the Vatican was a powerful symbol of the direction Pope Francis was steering the Catholic Church. It represented a blurring of the lines between the sacred and the secular, a bringing down of the walls that had long separated the church hierarchy from the people it served. Word spread through the Vatican. The Pope had a dog, not just any dog, but a stray, a humble mutt plucked from obscurity. The dog, found wandering the streets of Rome, was brought to the Pope, embodying his commitment to humility and compassion. Life within the Vatican walls was a far cry from the streets of Rome. The dog, unfazed by its newfound status, padded through the apostolic palace, greeting everyone with equal enthusiasm. The Pope often took his friend for walks in the Vatican gardens, a sight that warmed hearts. The presence of a dog injected joy into this most serious of institutions. The arrival of a dog in the Vatican was not without its critics. Some viewed it as a breach of protocol, a step too far in modernizing the Church. But Pope Francis was sending a powerful message: compassion and kindness know no boundaries. It was a day like any other in St. Peter's Square. Tourists gathered, cameras flashing, as they awaited Pope Francis. On this particular Wednesday, a small, furry head poked out from beneath the Pope's arm. The crowd erupted into cheers and laughter as the Pope's dog joined the festivities. Tradition and spontaneity collided in the most delightful of ways. Images of the Pope and his dog flashed across screens worldwide, reactions swift and varied. Many praised the Pope's humility and common touch. Some saw it as a move to challenge the Church's image, others as a reflection of his love for animals. The image resonated in a way no papal decree ever could. The image of the Pope and his dog offered a much-needed moment of levity. The laughter in St. Peter's Square was a testament to the power of shared experience. The love between a human and an animal transcends ideology and dogma. The story of the Pope's dog is a reminder that change is possible, and sometimes all it takes is the wag of a tail. News, especially heartwarming news, travels fast in our digitally connected world, and so it was with the tale of the papal pup. What began as a local anecdote quickly transcended geographical boundaries. Images of the Pope and his furry friends spread like wildfire on the internet. Social media platforms were taken over by a wave of canine cuteness. The hashtag #PopeFrancisDog trended globally, with people sharing images and comments. The story resonated with a diverse online audience, touching hearts across cultures. News outlets picked up on the trend. The Pope's dog became a global news item, featured in articles and TV segments. From serious newsrooms to daytime talk shows, the papal pup became a talking point. This wasn't the first time Pope Francis made headlines for his unconventional approach. It was a reminder that stories of kindness and joy can touch hearts across continents. The old adage, "A picture is worth 1,000 words," has never been truer than in the age of social media. In a world bombarded with information, it's often images that capture our attention, evoke emotions, and shape our perceptions. And the image of Pope Francis, a figure often perceived as distant and revered, sharing a light-hearted moment with his dog was a powerful one indeed. The contrast couldn't have been starker. The grandeur of St. Peter's Square, the weight of tradition, the solemnity of the occasion, all juxtaposed with the simple joy of a man and his dog. It was a visual representation of the message Pope Francis had been trying to convey throughout his papacy, a church that was open, welcoming, and in touch with the everyday lives of the people it served. The image resonated because it challenged preconceived notions. Here was the leader of the Catholic Church, a figure often seen as shrouded in tradition and formality, displaying a very human, very relatable side. It was a reminder that beneath the vestments and the rituals, there was a man who understood the simple joys of companionship, who found solace in the unconditional love of a dog, just like millions of others around the world. This wasn't a carefully crafted PR stunt, but a spontaneous moment captured on camera, and that authenticity only added to its power. It was a reminder that sometimes the most effective way to communicate a message is not through words, but through images that speak directly to the heart. While the image of the Pope's dog sparked joy and amusement worldwide, it also carried a deeper message, one that went beyond the superficial cuteness. It spoke to a growing desire within the Catholic Church for a return to simplicity, to a focus on compassion, love, and acceptance. Pope Francis championed this message. His emphasis on humility and outreach to the poor challenged the status quo. The dog symbolized this shift, a furry ambassador for a more inclusive church. It highlighted the evolving nature of faith. In a world skeptical of institutions, people are drawn to authenticity, to leaders who connect with their lives. The image of the Pope with his dog spoke to this desire. It presented a different side of faith, one less about dogma and more about universal values. The story offered a glimmer of hope. It showed that even in tradition-bound institutions there was room for change and simple joys. And in a world starved for such moments, that was a message worth sharing. The sight of a dog in the Vatican, while unusual in recent times, might not have been so out of place centuries ago. History is replete with examples of animals playing significant roles in religious settings, their presence often imbued with symbolic meaning or practical purpose. From the sacred cats of ancient Egypt to the oxen pulling carts laden with religious offerings, the animal kingdom has long been intertwined with human expressions of faith. In medieval monasteries, for example, animals were not merely tolerated but often considered integral members of the community. Cats, prized for their mousing abilities, helped protect precious food stores and illuminated manuscripts from rodent damage. Dogs served as loyal companions and watchdogs, guarding the monastery grounds and providing a sense of security in often turbulent times. These animals, far from being viewed as mere beasts of burden, were often afforded a degree of respect and even affection. St. Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of animals, famously preached to birds, and considered all creatures his brothers and sisters. His example, though radical for its time, highlighted the inherent worth and dignity of all living things, regardless of their place in the human hierarchy. The presence of animals in religious settings, however, was not always without controversy. As theological debates raged over the nature of the soul and the relationship between humans and the natural world, animals often found themselves caught in the crossfire. Were they beings capable of experiencing emotions and forming spiritual bonds, or were they merely soulless creatures placed on earth for human use? The arrival of Pope Francis's dog at the Vatican, and the overwhelmingly positive response it elicited, challenged long-held assumptions about the relationship between animals and faith. For too long, the narrative had been dominated by a certain stereotype, that of the stern, ascetic religious figure who shunned earthly pleasures, including the companionship of animals, in favor of a life dedicated solely to spiritual pursuits. This stereotype, however, ignored a rich and complex history of human-animal interaction within religious traditions. It failed to acknowledge the countless individuals who found solace, inspiration, and even spiritual guidance in their relationships with animals. From the monks who shared their meals and living quarters with their furry companions to the saints who saw in the animal kingdom a reflection of God's divine creation, the human-animal bond has long been a source of comfort and wonder. Pope Francis, by embracing the simple joy of having a dog by his side, shattered this stereotype and reminded the world that compassion and kindness know no boundaries, no species, no creed. He showed that it was possible to be a devout spiritual leader, while also appreciating the simple pleasures of life. including the unconditional love and companionship of a furry friend. In doing so, he opened up a space for a more nuanced conversation about the role of animals in our lives and in our understanding of faith. He challenged us to look beyond the stereotypes, to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of all creatures, and to embrace the interconnectedness of all living things. The bond between humans and animals is a profound and ancient one, reaching back to the very dawn of our shared history. Animals have served as our companions, our protectors, and our sources of sustenance. They have shared our homes, our hearths, and, in many cultures, our spiritual beliefs and practices. The image of Pope Francis with his dog then, while seemingly simple on the surface, tapped into something much deeper, a primal connection that transcends language, culture, and even religious doctrine. It spoke to the universality of love, the inherent goodness that resides in all creatures, and the power of compassion to bridge even the most seemingly insurmountable divides. For some, animals serve as a tangible link to the divine, a reminder of the beauty and wonder of creation. For others, they are companions on the spiritual path, offering unconditional love, support, and a sense of grounding in an often chaotic world. Their presence can teach us patience, forgiveness, and the importance of living in the present moment. In a world increasingly dominated by technology, where human connection can often feel fleeting and superficial, the enduring bond between humans and animals reminds us of the importance of empathy, compassion, and the simple joys of companionship. It is a bond that can enrich our lives, deepen our faith, and remind us that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves. The tale of Pope Francis's dog, though seemingly trivial in the grand scheme of things, offers a powerful lens through which to view the evolving nature of the papacy and the Catholic Church as a whole. It highlights the inherent tension between tradition and modernity, between the weight of history and the need to adapt to a rapidly changing world. For centuries, the Vatican has been seen by many as an institution steeped in tradition, often resistant to change and slow to embrace the realities of modern life. The arrival of Pope Francis, however, signaled a departure from this perception, a willingness to challenge the status quo and to engage with the world in a more open and compassionate manner. The dog, in this context, becomes more than just a pet. It becomes a symbol of this shift, a furry ambassador for a more inclusive and approachable church. Its presence within the hallowed halls of the Vatican challenges preconceived notions, blurs the lines between the sacred and the secular, and reminds us that even the most seemingly unyielding of institutions are capable of change. The overwhelmingly positive response to the Pope's canine companion, both within the Catholic community and among those of other faiths, and no faith at all, speaks to a deep-seated desire for authenticity, for leaders who are relatable, and who connect with the everyday lives of the people they serve. It suggests that people are less interested in dogma and pronouncements from on high, and more drawn to simple acts of kindness, compassion, and humility. It remains to be seen what lasting impact, if any, the tale of Pope Francis's dog will have on the Catholic Church. Will it lead to a more profound re-examination of the relationship between humans and animals within religious traditions? Will it inspire a greater sense of openness and inclusivity within the church hierarchy? Only time will tell. What is certain, however, is that the image of the Pope and his dog has captured the imagination of the world, transcending cultural and linguistic barriers to convey a message of simple joy, compassion, and the power of unconditional love. It has reminded us that even in a world often defined by division and discord, there are still moments of pure, unadulterated goodness that can bring us together. Perhaps in the end that is legacy enough. In a world hungry for hope, for connection, for a reason to believe in the inherent goodness of humanity, the simple act of a man welcoming a stray dog into his life and into the heart of one of the world's most powerful institutions speaks volumes. It reminds us that change, however incremental, is always possible, that compassion and kindness know no boundaries, and that sometimes, all it takes to make the world a little bit brighter is the wag of a tail.